Money is not just about what you earn. It is about what you understand. And just before the end of his life, Charlie Munger left behind a warning that most people will hear, but almost no one will actually follow. This is not motivational advice. This is not about getting rich quickly. This is about something much deeper, something uncomfortable, something that quietly decides who builds real wealth, and who spends their entire life chasing it without ever catching it. Because here is the truth that almost no one wants to admit. Most people are not losing money because of bad luck. They are losing because they think the wrong way. And Munger saw this more clearly than almost anyone alive. He spent decades watching markets rise and collapse. He watched bubbles form, explode, and then form again under a different name. He watched intelligent people make incredibly stupid financial decisions, not because they lacked knowledge, but because they lacked discipline. And his final warning was simple, but brutal.
But those of you who are about to enter business school or who are there, I recommend you learn to do it our way, but at least until you're out of school, you have to pretend to do it their way.
If you do not control your thinking, money will control your life. Think about that for a second. Not your income, not your job, not your opportunities, your thinking. Because Munger believed that wealth is not created by intelligence alone. It is created by avoiding stupidity. And that sounds almost too simple, but it is exactly where most people fail. People chase complexity. They look for advanced strategies, secret investments, hidden opportunities. They believe that somewhere out there is a shortcut, something that will change everything overnight.
Of course, that's the other advice. The best way to get what you want in life is to deserve what you want. How could it be otherwise?
But Munger spent his entire life proving the opposite. The biggest financial mistakes are not complicated. They are painfully obvious. People just refuse to see them. And one of the biggest mistakes he warned about is the obsession with quick money. Look around today. Social media is filled with people promising fast success, trading strategies, crypto pumps, side hustles that claim to generate income instantly. It all looks exciting. It feels like opportunity. But what Munger understood is that fast money comes with a hidden cost. It rewires your brain. Once you start chasing quick wins, your patience disappears. Your expectations become unrealistic. And slowly, without realizing it, you stop building anything real. You stop thinking long-term. And that is where the real damage begins.
I don't like multitasking. I see these people doing three things at once, and I think, God, what a terrible way that is.
Because wealth, real wealth, is built slowly. Not because it has to be slow, but because compounding needs time to work. And most people never give it that time. They start something, expect results immediately, and when it does not happen, they quit. Then they jump to something else, and then something else again. Always moving, always chasing, but never staying long enough to benefit. Munger saw this pattern again and again. He saw people destroy their financial future not by making one big mistake, but by making thousands of small, impatient decisions. And here is where it gets even more interesting. After some time, you need to ask yourself a very uncomfortable question. What if the problem is not the opportunity, but the way you approach it? Because two people can have the exact same opportunity, and one will succeed while the other fails. Not because of luck, not because of timing, but because of how they think. One person is focused on building something durable. The other is focused on immediate results. And over time, that difference becomes everything. Munger believed that discipline is more important than intelligence. That is a powerful idea, because it means that success is not reserved for the smartest people. It is reserved for the most consistent ones. The ones who can stay rational when everyone else is emotional. The ones who can say no when everything around them is screaming yes. And that brings us to another warning he repeated many times. Avoiding stupidity is easier than seeking brilliance. But most people do the opposite. They try to be brilliant. They try to outsmart the market. They try to predict every move. They believe they can time everything perfectly. And in doing so, they expose themselves to massive risk. Munger never believed in that approach. He believed in simplicity. He believed in understanding what you are doing, staying within your circle of competence, and refusing to act when things do not make sense. And that last part is where most people struggle, refusing to act. Because doing nothing feels uncomfortable. It feels like you are missing out. And fear of missing out is one of the most dangerous emotions in finance. It pushes people into bad decisions. It makes them buy at the top. It makes them follow the crowd. It makes them abandon logic. And Munger saw this happen repeatedly in every market cycle. Different asset, same behavior. People rush in when things are rising. They feel confident. They believe they have figured it out. And then, when reality hits, they panic. They sell at a loss. And then they step away just in time to miss the next opportunity. It is a cycle. And it continues because people do not learn from it. Now here is something you need to really think about. If something feels easy and exciting, there is a high chance it is dangerous. Because real investing rarely feels exciting. It feels boring. It feels slow. It feels like nothing is happening. But that is exactly how it is supposed to feel. Because behind that boredom, something powerful is happening. Compounding. And compounding does not reward excitement. It rewards consistency. Munger often talked about how a few good decisions, held for a very long time, can change everything. Not hundreds of decisions. Not constant action. Just a few. But the key is holding them. And that is where people fail again. They do the hard part. They find something valuable. They invest. But then they cannot hold it. They get nervous. They get distracted. They listen to noise. And they exit too early. They interrupt the process. And when you interrupt compounding, you destroy its power. Now let us go deeper into what might be his most ignored warning. The importance of thinking independently. This is not easy, because humans are wired to follow the crowd. It feels safe. It feels comfortable. When everyone is doing something, it is hard to stand against it. But Munger believed that the crowd is often wrong at critical moments. Not always, but often enough to matter. And if you want to build wealth, you cannot think like everyone else. You need to be willing to look foolish in the short term to be right in the long term. That is not something most people can do. Because social pressure is powerful. When everyone around you is making money quickly, it is hard to stay patient. When everyone is talking about the next big thing, it is hard to ignore it. But that is exactly what Munger did throughout his life. He ignored noise. He focused on what made sense. And he waited, sometimes for years. And that level of patience is almost extinct today. We live in a world where everything is instant. Information, entertainment, communication. Everything happens quickly. And that has changed how people think about money. They expect speed. They expect results. And when they do not get them, they assume something is wrong. But nothing is wrong. They are just expecting the wrong thing. Munger warned that if you cannot delay gratification, you will never build real wealth, because every financial decision is a trade-off between now and later. Spend now or invest for later. Chase quick gains or build long-term value. React emotionally or stay rational. And those small decisions, repeated over time, create completely different outcomes. Now here is another layer that most people never consider. Your environment shapes your financial behavior more than your knowledge. You can understand everything about investing. You can read books, watch videos, learn strategies. But if your environment constantly pushes you toward bad decisions, you will struggle to apply what you know. Munger understood this deeply. That is why he emphasized surrounding yourself with the right influences. People who think long-term, people who value discipline, people who are not constantly chasing trends. Because behavior is contagious. If everyone around you is making impulsive decisions, you will eventually do the same. And that is why changing your environment can be more powerful than gaining more knowledge. Because knowledge without action is useless, and action without the right mindset is dangerous. Now let us bring all of this together. Munger's final warning was not about a specific investment. It was not about a market crash. It was not about predicting the future. It was about understanding yourself. Because at the end of the day, you are the biggest risk to your own financial success. Not the economy, not inflation, not the market. Your impatience, your emotions, your need for validation, your fear of missing out. These are the things that destroy wealth. And they do it quietly. No headlines, no warnings. Just small decisions that feel harmless in the moment, but add up over time. And here is the most uncomfortable truth of all. Most people will hear this and still ignore it. Because it is not exciting. It does not promise quick results. It does not feed the desire for instant success. It requires discipline, patience, self-control, and those are not popular qualities, but they are powerful. Because while everyone else is chasing the next opportunity, the people who understand this are building something much bigger. They are building systems, habits, thinking patterns that work over time, and that is what creates real financial freedom. Not a single moment, not a single trade, but a lifetime of good decisions. So the real question is not whether this advice works. It does. The real question is whether you are willing to follow it. Because understanding something is easy, applying it is hard, and that gap between knowing and doing is where most people lose everything they could have had. And that is exactly what Charlie Munger was trying to warn you about.